Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win, or you find a way to lose. This is part 3 and 4 of the 40-part series for Claressa Shields and Franchon, taking place on February 22nd with 25 days out. But make sure, if you consider yourself a boxing head, this weekend, Xander Zayas, Shakir Stevenson, Tia Fimo, Keyshawn Davis, Jermaine Ortiz. You got Jarrell Big Baby Miller. You know, there's so many fights that are going on this weekend. I mean, like, no kidding. Almost every single fight this weekend is damn near pay-per-view worthy. So you can only watch so many. So I just want to throw that out there. Go out there, man. Look at the boxing schedules. Look at what's coming up and tune in. Now, continuing on with Claressa Shields and Franchon in part 3 or 4 of the 40-part series. Look, I think we need to shift from talking so much about the controversy to talking about the combat. Trying to understand the styles of both women, footwork, power, defense, stamina, and ring IQ. And try to answer the real question. What's going to happen when these two meet, although it's the 5th time, 2nd time professionally, but this time each opponent is going to have a full 12-week camp. Now, I'm going to tell you, my boy Rick, whenever he comes into the chat, he calls in. Rick is not changing his tune, boy. He's going to tell you, Claressa Shields, she's got that boxing DNA. No matter what happens, how tough it gets in the ring, if you let Rick tell it, and I'm not saying he's wrong, Rick is going to tell you, Claressa is going to make the adjustments. She beats everybody. And there are a lot of people who agree with Rick. And the reason is because I think they understand Olympic-style fundamentals, high punch output, the clinch game, the balance, the fast combinations. With Claressa Shields, she has worked on power. She has worked on countering. You know, she's worked on a lot of things. And that's why this fight is so important, because she's got to bring it all together and show that she can put pressure on someone like Franchon, who's going to be coming in there to make it ugly, but also still maintain the volume of punches and hard shots, but do it intelligently. Effective aggression. Now, one thing about Claressa, right? She wins fights by outworking her opponents. She's able to outmaneuver them, and she can break your rhythm. Even if you land a few good shots on Claressa, she's got an ability to tell herself, up, and away. And she turned into super goat. And she finds a way to up it inside that ring. Next thing you know, the jab gets back on point. The elite conditioning shows up. The inside fighting game shows up. The mental toughness is on full display. And the adaptability is right there in front of your face. And you know why? Because of her trainer and her commitment to the sport of boxing. She can change tempo, she can change distance, she can change strategy mid-fight. That's why, man, when I sit back here, it would have been nice if Layla Ali, Ann Wolf, Claressa Shields, Franchon, Savannah Marshall, the Coleman's daughter, man, Christy Martin, Baumgardner, Caroline Dubois, Raquel Miller. If all of these women were in the same era and were probably maybe 10 pounds apart as far as weight class, then we'd have the kind of fights that would outperform the men. But it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? But although Claressa is great, all these fighters that I just mentioned, past and present, they were great. All fighters have technical risk, and for Claressa, she does at times walk in straight lines. If she was to find somebody who was fight somebody who's a great counterpuncher, I think Claressa could be countered. And she does have moments where she gets overconfidence, but she said she fought females that she knew she could beat up. With Franchon, she knows she can't just come in there and street fight them. She has to be smart. She has to go into a tool bag. So the thing is this. That's going to open timing windows, counter shots, and clinch fatigue with the technical wrist she has. Also, now that I think about it, if she's in there thinking more than reacting instinctively, as far as what she need to pull out her tool bag to keep Franchon off her or to try to damage and win rounds, shit, that little half a second of just thinking, Franchon could pounce on her, and next thing you know, Franchon drops her. You know, in boxing, man, that's where you got muscle memory. You know, it's a thinking man's game, thinking woman's game. But at some things, you got to be able to react instinctively. I know if I start bringing up some of these fighters, y'all ain't gonna know what I'm talking about, man. And David Reed and Obakar, y'all ain't gonna know what I'm talking about. Not all of y'all, but someone I know y'all know. Just think about Terrence Crawford when he fought Canelo. Canelo was throwing shots, Crawford was catching, counter. He knew what Canelo was going to do. That's from training and muscle memory. Crawford didn't have to think about shit. He was reacting instinctively. If Crawford would have took a half a second to try to process and think things through when Canelo was on him, Canelo would have hit Crawford with them Guadalajaran bing-bings. And Crawford would have been in trouble. But that's why we're going to see, when it comes to Claressa Shields, if through training camp they were able to work through those technical risks. Don't get me wrong, Claressa has all the confidence in the world, but even she knows she can't get into a Franchon. A fully conditioned, fully trained Franchon. I think she's going to get there, man, and do the Franchon what she's done to other fighters with Franchon coming off of a 12-week training camp. Now, speaking of Franchon, let's call herself the diva. Every video I say it, that girl can sing. And I'm going to keep saying it. She's got that boxing DNA too, man. Strong, physical fighter. Remember the first fight with Claressa, she threw it down. She got a solid jab, comfortable in the mid-range, good body work, disciplined defense. But her style is, she can be patient. She has structure, but she's tough. And she wins fights by any means necessary. Will she make the fight ugly? Yes. Will she try to control the space? Yes. Is she good at staying calm? Yes. Will she clinch and twist you and bump you and throw you down and risk losing the point doing some flagrant shit? Hell yes, she will. But that's just those are her strengths. You know what I'm saying? The composure, strength in the clinch, which this is why I believe Claressa Shields is lifting weights and putting on functional muscle. That way she can be just as strong as Franchon, but faster. And that's the right game plan. Because if not, when it comes to Franchon and her strengths, composure, strength in the clinch, good shot selection, she doesn't rush, she has tactical awareness, and she will grind you down. Now, as far as Franchon with them technical risks, look, Claressa feet are faster, her hands are faster. She's not going to throw 80 punches around, so she has less volume than Claressa. There are times when you watch her fight, she seems to wait a little bit too long, and she can be outworked. If I had to say who I think has the better conditioning, I would say Claressa. And I'm not just going off the first fight. I'm just watching Franchon throughout her career. She's in great shape. But it's just her style of fights where sometimes she can look like she's unraveling in the ring. But that's just the way she fights. But we're going to see, because that distance battle is everything. And when I say distance battle, who controls the fight? You know what I'm saying? Who controls the fight? Who controls where the fight happens? Because Claressa's going to want to keep it in the space to where she's comfortable. Franchon's going to want to keep it in the space to where she's comfortable. And they can execute the game plans. For Claressa, I think she wants to be maybe mid-range. Not necessarily up close, but I think more at mid-range. She got fast hands, but she has short arms. She even told a story about why they call her T-Rex. Aggressive, short arms, fast, but, again, the arms were short. Tall with short arms. But I think close to mid-range, more mid-range for Claressa. She want a high-paced fight to try to tire out Franchon. And she's going to want those combination exchanges because her hands are faster, her punches are straighter, and more than likely hers are going to get there 9 times out of 10. But the thing about exchanging with a puncher is she can get caught on the exchange, and Franchon could have some success. And that's why Franchon, she's going to want that shit at mid-range. She's going to want Claressa to try to exchange with her. That way she can deliver, some heavy shots and just hope one of those get through. And if she can hit Claressa with something to hurt her, well, then she can slow the pace down. And then now, Claressa is more doing all that thinking I was talking about. And now she's at a disadvantage because she's not reacting instinctively anymore. And I'll be honest with you. Everyone out here is thinking the fight's going to be at mid-range or Claressa going to be on the outside, popping that jab like Tommy Hearns. She's going to be out there on her Ike Corte, on her Larry Holmes. She's going to be out there with the De La Hoya jab. Listen. I don't think Franchon is going to allow that. I think she will have moments. I think that shit's going to come down to inside fighting. And that's just the way I see it. Claressa's strong on the inside. High output, rough tactics. She can deal with it. Franchon, even tougher tactics, even rougher tactics. Output's not as high, but she got a strong frame, good leverage. She holds positioning. And she will bang you out. She will grind you out. She will rough you up. She will make you uncomfortable. And that's extremely important in this fight. Making each other uncomfortable. So I think the inside game is going to decide, I'd say half the rounds, because I think that's where it's going to be. I think people in the crowd are going to get pissed off because they're going to want to see somebody come out there and bing, 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 and hit somebody, daze them, tranquilize them, have them out on their feet dancing salsa in the ring. I don't see that happening. I see clinching, grueling, ugly. Referee there, breaking, may take a point. That's what I see. But I think this fight boils down, like I've been saying, I'm going to keep saying, conditioning. Conditioning. That's the factor, man. Claressa likes to push the pace. A lot of people are concerned about her conditioning. She's always been a professional. Can't see her not coming in the ring prepared. But I tell you what, if Claressa is going to want to push that pace, she got to make sure. It's not even about having elite condition. You got to have special conditioning in this fight. So if Claressa has elite conditioning and Franchon has special conditioning, Claressa going to be in trouble. And you may say, well, what's the difference? Andy Cruz-Murataya. Cruz had elite conditioning. He was looking good. Even in the last few rounds, he looked good. But Murataya looked special because he had special conditioning. And this fight to me is really, conditioning is going to have a whole lot to do with what happens in those late rounds because conditioning becomes leverage. Anyone who's ever been in a boxing match, even if you just went in a ring, in a gym and you sparred, you didn't have to fight as an amateur. You didn't have to be out here with all this big fancy record. No, if you've gone and you sparred, I would say like 3, 4, 5 times, you know what that shit feels like. To be inside that ring, first 30 seconds, especially the first time you start sparring, everybody's anxious and you just throw a whole bunch of shots and shit. Then you're tired and them arms drop and the other guy's in good shape and he just starts pop-shotting you. You know how important conditioning is and how conditioning can become leverage. You know what I'm saying? And I think for Franchon, I think she's going to like it better when the pace is slower. But I think Claressa got to be careful pushing that pace because if Franchon, if she has the expanded gas tank, it's going to be crazy. Just like for Franchon, if Claressa has the expanded gas tank, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be bad. But that's where ring IQ comes into play. For Claressa, look, when you start talking about that ring IQ matchup, fast adjustments, aggressive decisions, she needs to show that in this fight. For Franchon, she's going to be patient, defensively responsible, want to observe, and be ready to counter and pounce on Claressa and not let Claressa get in a rhythm and get comfortable. But at the end of the day, a lot of boxing fans will want to hear this. They feel the fight is fixed. It's not fixed. But with the judges and optics, I want to see who's going to be judging the fight. Are you going to have a judge that's sitting here looking at the volume and the clean shots? Or someone who likes the pressure, the precision, the grinding down of an opponent? Someone who wants aggression versus someone trying to control the fight? You could see scorecards that are all whacked out. Because this shit could split judges. You watch, again, Raymond Murataya and Andy Cruz. I had it 115, 113 for Cruz or 114, 114. But 115, 113 for Murataya, no problem. But I really thought Cruz, I thought he did enough. But when you see that a 115, 113 for the other guy, 114, 114, that's fair. That 118, 110 scorecard was ridiculous. That shit was a travesty. But it goes back to judges, man. And, every judge, it's optics. They like different things. So I think it's like, the question is who's going to win the geography of the ring and who's going to win the judges over. Now I'm going to roll right into part 4 because now when you start talking about the judges and worrying about what the judges think, I think that's where that mental warfare and psychological pressure, it's already started, but it's going to continue in the ring, especially with in between rounds if your corner is saying, hey, look, you're behind, or you need to do this. Or maybe they get word on an unofficial scorecard, hey, on an unofficial scorecard, you're down 3 rounds. That psychological pressure, mental warfare is real. This is what fighters, you got to try to understand their confidence, the pressure they deal with, the public expectations, and emotional control. And I just think we need to try to figure out how mental discipline can be just as decisive as punching power. Now, if you don't know that boxing is mental before physical, that's my little man right there. That's cool, man. What you make? Star? Okay. I'm almost done, little man. You'll come hang out here with me? Because I'm not going live tonight, man. I don't feel good, so I'm just getting my videos out the way so I can chill with you, okay? Boxing is mental before physical, man. And if you follow boxing, there's stories about certain fighters who, ended up doing the unthinkable to themselves, to family members, guys who, have broke down in the middle of the ring. So the bottom line is training is physical, but winning is mental. And if you have fear, if you have doubt, if you're dealing with a lot of pressure, expectations, all that lives in the mind. I've said, hey, close the door, little man. Thank you. And I've said this consistently, I'm going to keep saying it. I know from my own experience, it doesn't matter where you go in the world, you can't leave your mind behind. And all of this crap, fear, doubt, pressure, expectation, it lives in the mind. We all go through it. All of us go through it. Now, when it comes to Claressa Shields and Franchon, look, Claressa's, her mental strength, she got championship experience. She thrives under the spotlight. She's competitive. She brings that fire to the ring. And you can see, she refuses to feel inferior. And she really does believe that, look, I'm the greatest woman of all time, and I'm supposed to win. I'm a winner. F all of y'all who try to tell me anything different. I commend that because I believe that way. I see that way about myself. And whenever I'm out here interacting with children, when I'm out here at these schools, whether I'm subbing or I'm doing briefings or I'm going in there for like a morale event, whenever I talk to those children, I tell them all, we don't break champions down, we build them. You're a champion. And I tell them, you're somebody. Don't let nobody tell you different. And I say, Mr., whatever my last name is, I'd say, Mr. So-and-so feels that way about you. Because I realize that with a lot of people, they don't get that. Kids don't get that. And just for me being in these schools and just watching, anyway, I ain't gonna get into that because it's sad. Let me stick to what I'm talking about. But what I'll tell you is, when you have a championship mentality, I commend anybody who has that. Now, attitude has a whole lot to do with things, but you got to respect somebody who's just like, F everybody else, I'm somebody. And I think Claressa has that. She believes she's supposed to win. But there are some mental risks. Emotional reactions. She's always out here defending herself. She feels misunderstood. And I'm going to tell you, that creates internal noise. Anybody who is out here, if you're getting harassed on social media, or you're getting bullied, or you're out there in your community, your neighborhood, if you go looking for that noise, that shit will mess with you. So don't go looking for it. And when anyone tries to bring it to you, tell them, I don't want to hear nothing negative. Keep that shit away from me. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're someone who's like, no, I'm misunderstood, or someone who gets on the defensive, or someone who's a hothead, you're going to fire off. And that's where, for us, we got to see with Claressa Shields, how's she going to deal with all of this stuff that has been going on social media. Now for Franchon and her mental profile, plus Clarissa's fighting that. I know people say, oh, that's Detroit's not her home. Look, she's from Michigan, right? She go out there, she reps from Michigan, she's from Flint. But when she go out there, she wants to show up and show out. She wants to impress. A lot of people there to support her. The whole venue. If they sell it out, we got to wait and see. But no matter if it's sold out or not, that shit's going to be pretty intense. And I made a joke last night. I pray to God that Papoose Pap and Win Records, they don't bring 3-6 Mafia and tear the club up. Because all hell going to break loose inside that goddamn venue. But for Franchon, her mental profile, she always seems to be pretty calm, reserved, less reactive. And she's cool with being an underdog. She's like, all right, nobody gave me nothing. I found a way to win. And all my fights became an undisputed champion. And I'm looking to get a win against Claressa. So her mindset is, I don't have nothing to prove. Claressa has everything to prove. She the one out here with Dimitri Salita and Win Records. I'm just someone that they picked and thinking that she's going to beat me. But I understand who this is for. This is Claressa Shields coming out party. The first big fight. They want to make an explosion on the scene with Win Records, Dimitri Salita, the new big deal. $8 million, $3 million bonus, $2 million guarantee across 4 fights. That she understands. But you see that pressure distribution? It reminds me of preparing for major inspections. You know, we used to have annual inspections. And somewhere every couple of years. But when we had those inspections, yo, man, there was a lot of pressure distribution because we knew, like Claressa knows, you got to win. You got to pass the test. And I think for Claressa, I understand. She's got to win. She's got to dominate, just like we had to dominate on the inspection. And she's got to justify legacy. And we were doing the same thing by saying, yo, okay, for 5 years straight, we had the highest inspection grade. You know, y'all ain't going to understand all this, but I just say out of all of the different outfits, we had the highest inspection grade. For Claressa, she got to justify her legacy and continue dominating and continue winning. But the thing is this, Franchon can shock. Franchon can spoil. Franchon can steal moments. But the pressure favors the underdog because nobody expects for the underdog to win. So they're just like, whatever. If I win, cha-ching, ching, Wu-Tang cream, dollar bill, y'all, rematch. But if you're supposed to win and you lose, the fans going to go buck wild. And it ain't going to be nothing nice. They're sitting back, locked and loaded. They got hollow points. They're ready to come out here and boop, and start licking shots and shit. You know what I'm saying? But that crowd energy, man, that crowd energy is going to be important because the crowd responds to emotion. They respond to confidence. They respond to body language. If Claressa looks tense, energy shifts. If Franchon looks relaxed, her confidence is going to grow. So I want to see how the first 4 rounds play out. Who's going to be tense? Who's going to be overcommitting? Who's going to be a little bit extra in the ring? And who's going to be relaxed, calm, patient, picking their moments, and stealing rounds? I want to see how that plays out. Because the crowd energy, they could hype you up to go do some shit that is contrary to what your team wants you to do. You got to stick to the game plan and block out the crowd, which is hard to do. It's like trying to block out the internet. So for Claressa Shields, if she wasn't able to block out the internet, can she block out the crowd on fight night? But that trash talk versus silence is something else, man. You know, sometimes the trash talk is good. It's just a fight, right? But can it go overboard? Yes. But when it comes to Claressa, when it comes to Franchon, Claressa is very expressive, very reactive, very passionate, and can be very offensive. Franchon is more quiet, observational, but if you poke her, she will be reactive, she'll be expressive, and she'll be very offensive. But she's not just going to come out there and just find somebody and just be ranting and raving. Claressa doesn't seem to be someone who's just looking to mess with people, but she's vocal, very, very vocal, and I think sometimes that's misconstrued. But it's what she says. You know, Michelle Obama said, when they go low, we go high. Claressa, like, when they go low, I go lower. And she doesn't care. But that's why it's important to see if now she's realizing, you know what? Let people make noise. I'm going to maintain my stillness. And I'm not getting caught up in the bullshit. Because at the end of the day, she's famous. And you shouldn't be getting down in the weeds with bullshit and worrying about stuff. Look, I myself and other people I know, we ain't nothing near her level. But we have different skill sets, different experiences. We don't worry about none of that bullshit. You know what I'm saying? We don't care. And she will develop that over time. She will develop that. And it just comes down to a lot of ego. A lot of us have ego. But once you're able to get control of your ego, that's where the discipline settles in. You know, when you're going off of ego, you're trying to prove a point. You're trying to say stuff. You're worried about what people think about you. Yeah, I did this. I said that. Look at me. Up, and away. I'm Superman. I'm Superwoman. But at a certain point in time, that shit dies off. You start looking like a clown. You know what I'm saying? Discipline is different. You're not out here trying to prove a point with social media or inside the boxing ring. You're trying to win the rounds. So I think it's important to see who's going to have the ego under control, who's going to be the most disciplined, and then we're going to find out which one's going to win. Is it going to be the person with the ego trying to prove a point, or the person with discipline like, shit, I'm just trying to win round after round, and if it goes to a decision, make sure I win a decision. I ain't necessarily trying to knock somebody out. You know what I'm saying? But that's what happens. Ego sometimes can feed into your anger as fuel. And then anger can become fog. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes being passionate is okay. Angry, I mean, if you can control, if you have the emotional discipline with the anger, I mean, it can work to a benefit. But anger can energize, it can distract, and it can narrow your vision if you're angry. That's why sometimes you got to just step away from things. Breathe, assess, think things through about if you want to respond or if you don't, how you want to approach a fight, how you don't. And when you're in the ring, what to do. When you're in there, stay composed, stick to the game plan, and get caught up in the opponent talking shit to you or the crowd booing you. You can't allow that to narrow your vision. So that controlled anger is going to be a weapon. Who's going to be able to control their anger in the ring? The uncontrolled anger become a liability. And who's going to show up with uncontrolled anger? That's what I'm going to be looking at. And I think there's going to be a mental turning point in that fight, depending on who can stay calm and control their anger and who's not going to control their anger and be out there firing off hollow points and just getting emotional and punching after the bell and arguing and shouting and cussing and acting a fool. Because one moment can shift, depending on if you get hit, caught up with the crowd, pissed off with the ref, start having friction with your corner. Any moment in any of those situations can shift your confidence, can shift your body language, and can shift your decision making. Next thing you know, someone get a knockdown, or you have a bad round, or you throw a shot and miss, and your opponent mocks you like, oh, what was that? You know what I'm saying? We see a lot of fighters doing that. But I think for Franchon, she has a mental opportunity. Claressa is an emotionally charged fighter, and it's cool. You should want to win. You should want to be a hothead. It's mental. It's mental. And I know it is. But I could see her where she gets frustrated sometimes. I've seen where, like in the last fight, she was throwing big shots and missing. The last fight, just especially the early rounds, it looked kind of crazy. Chasing around the ring and punching like this and shit. It looked kind of crazy. But what I'll say is, if she feels disrespected, Claressa is going to try to fight and fight hard. And this is why Franchon has a huge opportunity here. If she can stay calm, take rounds, control the pace, Franchon is going to be in a very, very good position. So anyway, we just have to wait and see who's going to win the emotional war. I'll be honest with you. Right now, I don't know. I know some people are diehard Claressa Shields fans, and they're like, yo, she's always been perfect, unpredictable. Put some respect on her name. I agree with that. That's true. She's been perfect, unpredictable. Hard to go against somebody like that. But I also understand where someone like Franchon has a huge opportunity, and it looks like one person has more distractions than the other. This may be Franchon's moment, but she's got to seize it. Anyway, man, countdown to Shields versus Dezurn, 25 days out. Parts 3 and 4. Tomorrow I'll do probably parts 5, 6, 7, 8. Probably do parts 5 through 9 tomorrow, if I have the time. I ain't feeling good, so we'll see. That being said, y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans, all 7 continents. In the breeze.